I remember I was about to tell my boyfriend to tell my son that I loved him, because as it went on, it got to the point where I was like, I'm going to die. Like, I really, truly thought that I was going to get crushed to the point where my trachea was going to get crushed, my chest. I thought I was going to die.
When Travis Scott came on stage, I told myself that this was a moment that I had been preparing for, that I just needed to breathe. Diana Amira told NBC News, but my ribcage was being crushed and I couldn't fill my lungs. Rap superstar Travis Scott continued performing for 40 minutes after Houston police and firefighters began responding to a multiple casualty incident at the Astroworld Music Festival, 2021's edition. By the time he stepped off the stage, 8 people had died and dozens more were injured. Rapper Travis Scott's performance at the Astroworld Music Festival in Houston, Texas, ended in tragedy when a crowd began to push onto the stage, sparking panic and killing people. These people were aged between 14 and 27 years, in addition to about 300 injured. What went wrong? What really happened? Why didn't Scott pause the event? There are a lot of questions in dozens of testimonials. Before this year's festival began, there were those who feared for the security conditions in view of the crowds that were to attend. A security plan obtained by the New York Times pointed to some worrisome aspects. Quote, "Based on the design of the site and numerous past experiences, the possibility of incidents related to alcohol or drugs, the possible need for an evacuation, and the threat of a mass incident were identified as the key concerns," the document explains. Before Scott took the stage, local news broadcasts recorded fans breaking into the venue and bypassing security checks. In a statement, Finner explained how during the short and respectful meeting, he was able to communicate his public safety concerns and told the rapper to be aware of his team's messages on social media about any unscheduled events. So how could this tragedy have happened? The rapper is known for his wild gigs and has had trouble in the past for inciting dangerous behavior. In 2015, he was charged with disorderly conduct after encouraging his fans in Chicago to ignore security and take the stage. 2 years later, he saw a fan hanging from a balcony on the second floor of a concert hall and tried to convince him to jump. At that same concert, a 27-year-old spectator was left paralyzed after being pushed into the void from a third-floor box. In 2019, hundreds of fans surpassed the barriers of the Astroworld Festival, which ended with 3 people in the hospital with minor injuries. Police later wrote on Twitter that the concert was understaffed and that the promoters were not prepared for large crowds. The statement was deleted sometime later. The enthusiasm of some 50,000 spectators at the sold-out Astroworld Festival was evident from the moment the doors opened 7 hours earlier, when some of the first to arrive rushed through the entrance with such force that metal detectors were downed while security guards and mounted police struggled to maintain order. Although the festival had numerous acts, Scott, a musician originally from Houston, who founded the festival in 2018 following the release of his popular album Astroworld, was without a doubt the artist everyone wanted to see. Some fans lined up for the stage built exclusively for Scott, setting spots aside for hours under the peaks of Utopia Mountain scenery. As the afternoon turned to night and the countdown clock peered around 8:30 p.m., the crowd became denser and denser. According to people in attendance, the first waves of movement began. 5 minutes after starting, and with the arrival of the last-minute people, it was more compact. In the last 30 seconds on the clock, the mountain peaks on stage turned into a volcano, and when the moment came, the crowd began to shout. Scott appeared, and the shoving got stronger, and then the waves of fear began as well. Eligio Garcia, of 18 years old, a native of Corpus Christi, Texas, said it was about 40 seconds into the concert when he looked at his girlfriend with concern. They felt a heat that enveloped their bodies, and it became difficult to breathe. In the distance, echoes of shouts could be heard. "Please help me!" Behind him, people were falling. They felt the shoving, and his girlfriend detached from his left arm. In an instant, the two were stuck on the floor in a pile of bodies. They managed to get up, and Garcia said they yelled for help from production staff they saw nearby but got no response. Any way out seemed impossible, but they eventually made it to safety. "We have to get out of here," he told his girlfriend. "We cannot fall back into that slam circle." Scott's fans have the nickname Ragers and are expected to be constantly on the move at a concert. The rapper, who dreamed of being a wrestler as a child, said he wanted his concerts to look like WWF Wrestling League matches. He often incites chaos from the stage and stirs up frenzied energy. Scott paused for about a minute and asked the audience to raise their arms to the sky. "You all know what you came for," he said. It was a signal for two men who were chosen from the audience to jump off the stage into the crowd. But what do the witnesses say? One of those attending the concert, Madeline Eskins, a nurse by profession, spoke with CNN and described the experience inside the venue. Eskins, who attended the event with her boyfriend, explained that people started pushing onto the stage as soon as Scott started his performance, and immediately afterward, her body began to feel compressed. "I felt a constant pressure on my chest, a constant pressure on my back. On one side, they were crushing me. I tried to lift my arms to try to open space, but it didn't work," she said. The pressure mounted when Scott started his act, and Eskins intermittently passed out, so she couldn't see what was going on, but she could feel people crowding around. The next thing she remembers is that someone grabbed her, led her through a fence, and sat her in a chair, where she lost consciousness again, only to wake up later in a different area and with a bottle of water on her lap. To all this, what have the organizers said? In a statement on Twitter, the organizers of the Astroworld Festival announced the cancellation of all concerts scheduled for Saturday. They affirm that their, quote, "heart goes out to the festival's family, especially those who have lost their loved ones, and they assured that they are in communication with the local authorities to help them in the investigation." Additionally, Scott said he was absolutely devastated by the tragedy. "My prayers go out to the families and to those shocked by what happened at the Astroworld Festival," he wrote in a statement. And like all the questions that have arisen, in the end we ask ourselves, what caused the human avalanche? What caused the avalanche is still unknown, and local Houston Police Chief Troy Finner has urged Houston residents not to jump to conclusions about what happened. "I think it is very important that none of us speculate. Nobody has all the answers tonight," Finner said at the press conference given by the authorities in the early hours of next Saturday. The mayor of Houston, Democrat Sylvester Turner, said on Saturday in an interview on CNN that the causes of the tragedy are still being investigated. "Listening to the testimonies makes our skin crawl, and we empathize with all these families too. We have no words to express our grief for all the families who lost a loved one. Our heart and our support go out to all those affected by this tragedy." We want to know your opinion on this. Do you really think that Travis could see what was happening and decided not to stop the concert anyway? What do you think could have been done to prevent this tragedy? What were the weak points of the concert and why were they not supervised? Tell us your opinion, and if you like this video, follow us for more content like this.